All right. Well, welcome everybody. Good morning to some on the West Coast and good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. I'm Paul Wiesner. I'm the CEO here at Realty Connection, and we bring you on task recruiting software. And I'm always joined by my good friend and buddy, Rob Sutherland, who handles our executive calling services that plug in on task. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Good morning / afternoon, Paul. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. We've got a wonderful guest today from down in Florida where it's sunny and warm. Who do we have today, Paul?
Well, we've got Virginia Bond, and she's with Engel Volkers down in Tampa, Florida. She is the owner of the brokerage there, and she's also started a women's real estate brokerage leadership group. So Virginia, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your leadership group, and then we'll kind of get into the topics of recruiting and growing your office.
So our office is in downtown Tampa. We are part of Engel & Volkers, which is an international luxury brand. I decided to start a mastermind with all the female owners that own franchises in the state of Florida. I figured we're about a gas tank away from each other. I believe that you should have a support system, and sometimes not that we would want to exclude anyone. Of course, we'll probably, once I get a grasp on how to truly manage and get the most out of a mastermind with all the females and hopefully build some friendships and some bonds with them, I'd like to expand that to other leadership groups as well. But we did that in order to support each other, because sometimes when you're an owner, you kind of feel like you don't have anyone to bounce ideas off of. And when it comes to E&V, we don't have any lame ducks. Everybody's obsessive about their success. So, and we're also very collaborative. So in the spirit of that, that's why we formed the Women's Owners Mastermind.
That's great. So, given the turn in the real estate market here with, the pressures on the economy, the rising interest rates, what are some of the topics that are being brought up in your leadership group, or topics that you see affecting the real estate community? And what are some solutions that you are proposing or you hear proposed?
So I feel like as far as the recruiting experiences that we've had, we hear a lot of agents who are wonderful producers, and even some that are maybe, not so seasoned. What we hear is a lack of support and accountability. A lot of times, and to be fair to other brokerages, there is something to be said, right, on your commission structure. When you're what I call like a pay and play, there's nothing wrong with those places. There's a lot of people that are self-starters and have their own way of doing things and want minimal influence or anything to do with the brand. There's more of a self brand. Those folks, it's perfect for them. But then there's folks like myself that I thrive in an environment of collaboration and working together and sharing ideas. I think we get to where we want to go faster when we do that. So that's where we come in as a value to the marketplace. But everyone has a place that works for them. And also the market changing and shifting and having a drop off in professionals. I think that's a good thing, because the people, it separates the men from the boys. You get the people that want to stay in it, right, and are willing to muscle through this season that we're having right now, which is very unpredictable and also really tough in order to sell yourself to the clients, because they're still wishful thinking 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, and you have to have that conversation. You have to be able to communicate that.
So
I agree. Yeah,
go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, no, what I just wanted to ask was, in Tampa there, Florida is often a barometer for a lot of things to do with real estate. What has the market been like as far as like median house price and things like that with buyer confidence? What are you finding, pre-hurricane, post-hurricane? Has it been kind of par for the course? What's the market been like in Tampa?
So I think the hurricane, right, because even your new folks that came up here, we get so many transplants from the Northeast. that they come here for the weather, and then the weather introduces herself. So you get some folks get some remorse. So there was a shift a little, even in conversations that I had with people that were surprised, newer folks that were that, believe it or not, that bought in the frenzy, experienced that last hurricane, or at least the threat of it in our area, because we weren't as affected as some of our southern neighbors, but there were folks that felt disappointed. So, and I get that, right? In California, you have earthquakes, right? I've experienced that. I'm from California. But do have some buyer pullback. And then what happens is we all understand that Mother Nature's everywhere, and every region, usually has their, either whether it's the weather, the temperature, hurricanes, tornadoes, right? We all have something, maybe
Right.
not all, but a lot of different areas in the US have different weather issues that they have to deal with. But overall, the state of Florida is magical. Our average temperature year round is sunny, and we have water surrounding almost every part of our state. And so folks that enjoy that, like me, it's for me, it's, oh, well, another hurricane, right? We just deal with it. So,
Right. It's a great
A little
place
bit of
to
wind.
live. So,
right.
if, we got managing brokers on the webinar here. So if you were to look them in the eye and say, here are 3 things that you should be concerned and thinking about in today's world, what would you throw out to them?
In regards to the
Let's say
market.
growing your office, or as you said,
Mm.
the agent population is reducing, which is a good thing, because the people that thought it was a quick buck are
Mhm.
gone, and they know that the agents that are staying are really applying themselves. So you've got this new agent base, a smaller base. You've got housing sales aren't on as a rapid pace anymore. And of course, all that puts pressure financially on the managing broker and on the office. So to get through these times, what is your study group
Mm.
kind of go through, or what things in your mind would you help? What advice would you give these managing brokers?
So I've gone through the downfall, right? We all experienced back in, oh gosh, seems like a lifetime ago, where the market,
2008.
yeah, I know. I hate saying that number, but it's like, so we all experienced when we had that contraction, right? So if I could go back and I had to sort through these issues myself, right? And at the time where I was, there was not, everyone was scrambling, and it was not most of us that I was working with. This was our first time experiencing the market dip like that. So what I learned through that struggle, and what I'm offering now as a coach, is you have to do an analysis of your office, and you have to look at the market, and assume you're starting from scratch, and look at your tools and resources as far as technology, systems and tools, and coaching. And are those coaches, if you have coaches on staff like myself, or if you pay someone to coach them, or you are doing it yourself as well, hold those agents accountable. So if you're going to look at your business, look at all the different pillars that you have, and there should be support, accountability, technology, and know how to work those things also yourself. Whoever's teaching them that should have already used those tools and experienced trial and error, or receive some training. So when you sit down with your agents and you say, well, let's take a look at your business plan for 2023, you should be able to compile a strategy for the year that is consistent, and that has checks and balances in place at least every quarter, so that you can make adjustments to your agent's plans so that your office is successful. Because if all of us are running an office, we should have our goals that we are able to adjust up and down as we're going through the year. And our numbers as a agent affect that office, because that office is counting on that production. So I feel like the most important thing I wish I would have had at the time would have been someone to sit down with me talk to me and say, okay, if you're going to stay in this business, in this new market shift, you're going to need to make sure you develop all these muscles so you make it through. I did, but it was, white knuckling it, right? And it shouldn't be that way. It should be a supportive environment where the person knows what they're going to do for 2023, and that you're right next to them, helping them do that.
That's
I
great.
think that's a great point. I think a lot of people don't realize that the best systems are created in a downturn market.
Yeah.
I learned about real estate recruiting in 2008. That's when I got into it. So that's 15 years ago next year. You know what I mean? And I've been doing it ever since, but there's been changes in the market all the time that's happened. 2012, we saw a big issue as well. And then everybody got really lucky in 2020 for some reason, in 2021, and companies that were virtual did better than companies that had offices. And there was another kind of shift in the market where you saw all these mortgage companies just thriving on refinance and things like that doesn't even exist anymore, right? And I think that one of the things that people aren't aware of in the real estate industry is that the people in it tend to move slowly. And Virginia, much like Paul and myself, look at it like an entrepreneur, where you've got to be ahead of the curve, where you've got to start thinking ahead of things and not be the last person to stand there and go, oh, well, what happened? I don't understand. Where was that deal that was always there? Well, it's gone, it's changed. And so has the way to meet people, right? And the way to meet clients has changed and everything like that. So when you're thinking about being a realtor and being as opposed to being a broker owner, because I know you're a high producer, Virginia, what things are you doing as a realtor to, introduce yourself to more clients? Are you doing more video content now? Are you reaching out by phone? Like what tips have you got for just the average realtor?
So yes, thanks to you and partly to Rob for pushing me, but I started to study video.
Hey, you're great on camera. You're great on camera. So.
Thank you. So I started to study video, and I do. If I get my steps in like everybody else. I think we all have a step counter now on our watch. But while I'm doing that, I am devouring audio on new content marketing, which the pitch is gone, right? Lists with Lisa or whatever, I don't know anybody that says that, but I've seen that used to work back in our day when we started, right? Lists with so-and-so, we'd have our little pitches, and that's what we would put on paper, and that's how we marketed ourselves. The consumer now wants you to answer their concerns. Your jingle doesn't work anymore. You have to put out content marketing, which involves video. You have to communicate how to solve their issues. What are they afraid of? For example, mortgages, like you talked about, the refi, that phone's not ringing, right? No. And also, if you were codependent on a team leader or a brokerage that fed you leads, right? All of a sudden the well starts to run dry. And if that's your only muscle that you have, you're going to drown. So you should start considering other avenues, right? So content marketing and answering the consumer's question right now through video and through your marketing is critical. The market's so shifty, so we have to answer their value on their property. You should know how to run a CMA. What we've done in our office is we've brought on an appraiser that doesn't do a full appraisal for, depending on the houses we do are like $700 to $1,000 type fees for those appraisals. What he's doing is he's reviewing our homework, but we're submitting homework, right? It's not a quick CMA. We're going and making adjustments, figuring out what the value is, for example, of a pool in that neighborhood or a garage, right? Making all those adjustments, having someone coming in and checking your homework before you turn that into the client right now, because they're looking at numbers from 6 months ago or even 8 months ago. In some of the areas, they're so dense, right? That there's so many different homes that just sold that you got to be able to sift through those. Otherwise, the client gets a inaccurate value, and then you look like you don't know how to sell. So those are the things that I find right now are critical in answering, can a buyer finance a home? And we've sat down with our lenders. We found out there's a 3-2-1 buy down by CMG Mortgage right now. There's also another program called the All-in-One that they offer. This is just one lender that we talked to. We've talked to several. Finding out how a buyer, how a seller can help dispel that fear for the buyer to actually buy their listing. So we're addressing the interest rate up front, because that's the scary thing right now. Some people think they can't buy because the rates are so high. So
Well, think of what the rates were in the 80s and the 70s on
Right.
properties that were a tenth of
Right.
the value that they are now. You know,
Right.
crazy high mortgage rates. And I think a slight influx right now in the mortgage rates. I don't think we're going to ever see 10% on anything like that, but it will go down again, right? But again, building systems that will last often, you know, they are found out during a downturn or during a difficult market and things like that. Paul, what do you got next for questions for Virginia here?
Well, I really like the fact that you develop a business plan with your agents. You provide services that address some of the pressing needs right now, like how do we address the higher interest rates and stuff. So when you're out trying to recruit these experienced agents who are, you know, now have some time on their hands because the market isn't so frothy, do you work all of this into your recruiting pitch, and what do you find is the best effective way to get that messaging across? Is it calling them? Is it emailing them? Is it a combination of all the above? How do you grow your office by getting these experienced agents?
So Rob is who we work with to place our calls for our office, and they're wonderful. I get a lot of feedback from the agents that come to our office to talk to us about joining us. They are always impressed. One of them said, I had no idea what I just signed up for. That's how good he was. She goes, I hung up the phone and said, what am I doing? What the hell am I doing? I don't even know where I'm going. So she said he was that good. He was so conversational. So you got to be realistic, right? Those calls have to be made. If you don't have time to make them, you must implement. I call these things pillars, right? I'm sure you're familiar with wood frame houses. I bought one and I talked to the construction gentleman that was working with me, talked to me about these pillars underneath the house to keep the house level. So phone calls to me is one of those pillars. And if you're not going to make them, someone should be making them for you. The list that we provided Rob was a scrubbed list where we went and searched. We pulled the list of producing agents that was pulled by corporate actually, but we could pull the same list. We scrubbed it and we looked at people's accounts, websites, their Instagrams, their Facebooks, to get a glimpse of who they are. We're an invite only firm. We say more than no than we say yes. And so we researched that to see if these people are great fits for our culture, the environment that we want to have, right? One bad apple will ruin the whole batch. So that's very critical to us. And when we sent the list to Rob, it was already scrubbed. So he knew who to call from the huge list that we had. We condensed it down to make sure that the people he was calling were folks that we want to get to know. Our process is slow. So it's a marathon for us. It's definitely not a sprint. Some people will say, well, we're slow to hire, we're quick to fire. We don't want to fire. We don't even want to get to that. That's not the idea here, right? The idea is slow to hire so that when that person comes on board, they are an asset now. They are someone that you value. And they got to be someone that you feel excited shoulder to shoulder working with them on their goals and excited when they actually hit their numbers and talking to them about increasing that. Can't do that if the person, doesn't have the qualities that you're looking for, like integrity, honesty, enthusiasm. I believe enthusiasm is what sells homes, right? We don't have a magic powder, right? We don't have any magical spell we cast on you. People know what they want to spend. They know what's right for their families, but your enthusiasm and your knowledge, being the library, walking library through that house, being able to answer their questions, that to me is the golden combination. So when you have those agents that you talk to and you give them time to get to know you, and you likewise with them, you have a better chance of having a really good fit of someone that's going to be like a raving fan of your office. That makes your recruiting job a lot easier, because then they become your big fans, right? They're so happy because you're happy to help them. So it's a domino effect. Warm bodies for us is not the way. We can't do that. Not interested in that formula. I know that it works for other brokerages. I'm happy to send folks their way. So,
well, you nurture your recruiting. you nurture your recruiting like a sale. That's one of the things that we picked up from you right away, was that a lot of people that we work with have never made a sale or a deal in their entire career in real estate. You know, they've managed offices, they're great at administration, that type of a thing. Fantastic. Those people are extremely valuable in this business because they handle all the litigation and things that come through the office. Very, very important. But they are not necessarily a salesperson. Whereas a person like Virginia has done a million deals. So she knows when she's talking to somebody to not look overly interested or to just try and push like for the sale. It's like, let's ask you questions. Let's figure it out. Let's get you disarmed. You know, I remember a long time ago, someone said, you know, Rob, you got to wag more and bark less. And I thought, okay, I get that, you know, sit and listen as opposed to just jamming, you know, what I want to say, you know, into every part of the conversation. And I think that's one of the things why Virginia is a successful broker owner, is the fact that she treats it like a sale and nurtures it like that, right? And I think a lot of people think a recruiting conversation should just be like, oh, well, you're joining, let's go. Okay, that's it. Oh, you don't want to join. Okay, well, then forget it. You know, that is not how it's done. It's much more carefully done, especially if you want to retain them long term, because people will remember what their onboarding experience is like when they joined the office and how much you cared or didn't care, right? And especially, I'm sure you were at other offices before, right? And how you were treated there reflected how long you wanted to stay and what you thought of the office. And a lot of people join an office because of the brand, not necessarily the person behind it. And I've always found when there's a good person behind it or a team behind it that really care, and regardless of what their brand is, people will stay if they changed it to, you know, the Moon Realty or whatever. It doesn't matter what the name is. All that really matters is that they've got that good relationship, and it was cultivated by having a good culture, but also with support. Support is just the number one thing to say. Yeah, for sure.
Let's see if anyone has any questions. If you do, just tap them in the chat box there and we'll pass them on to Virginia. So along the lines of recruiting and, you know, fostering these long-term agents that come work for you, what do you say is the number of conversations or touch points you have to have with that agent before they make the final decision to come work over at your office?
I feel like it should be a minimum of 3 good exchanges. You know, I feel like my father always tells me that you could be dating someone for a year, you really don't know them yet. That's my dad. So for us, we got to move a little faster. But I do tell them when we first sit down, Aaron and I always say, look, this is like dating, right? If you fall in love with me on the first date or vice versa, there's something wrong with one of us, right? We should want your time should be valuable to you and mine to me. And if we're excited, if we have interest or the brand intrigues you, you should want to learn more. But the decision to jump or start asking, you know, what's the split and the first sit down, it's the same like saying, are you gonna have me sign a prenup, right? Like it's, you know, there's certain ebb and flow that should happen in order for that person to even be comfortable enough to allow themselves to express who they are in front of you. I think they deserve that dignity of, I met you, I think you're all right. And next time I see you, maybe I can open up a little bit more about who I am, what my values are. We want good, solid people. One of the things that we look for in advisors is a heart for community, because we're involved. We want to have a positive effect on for us, for example, it's Big Brothers Big Sisters of Tampa Bay and Special Olympics. Those are the 2 organizations we work with. We want people that are like-minded, that also take some of their time to give to someone else. So those kinds of things, right? I don't think it's fair to ask someone to show you all their cards and everything they are on the first date. I just don't. I think that you should allow them that time.
All right, we have a question.
I totally agree.
Right.
Question from Christine Thompson. So Christine is a 20-year experienced agent with a newer team, and she's focused on building the number of agents on her team. And so her question is, which type of agent do you think she should prospect to have the best success on bringing them onto her team?
Less than 20 deals a year.
I agree.
Somewhere between half a dozen and 15 deals a year is a great target. for pretty much everybody in the real estate industry. Because if you're going to sit there and call people who are top producers, it's going to take longer to convince them why they should move their business that's already successful somewhere else. Whereas if you can target somebody that's in a mid production where they're almost making enough money to cover their bills, or they're making enough money to cover their bills, and give them a support angle, or give them a, hey, you could save some money with us angle, or hey, you could make some more money with us angle. There's a bunch of different ways you can go with that. And obviously a great way to do that is to get some data like what Paul's got with his system, where you can go in and see, okay, so this realtor did 8 deals in the last year. The average commission was about, $4,000. Okay, that's a good prospect. This is someone that does need a little help, is probably not totally comfortable where they are, and have a look at their businesses. And I think that the best people that are our clients, like Virginia is saying on this call, researches the prospects, right? When we get a list of like 30,000 people from some, huge real estate board, and they're like, just call everybody. It's like, well, that's not very strategic, right? You have to approach the calls differently. If you're just blasting, it's not like sending out a mass email where you're just trying to get someone to read an article about Bitcoin. You're trying to call people and get them interested in you. And so the number one way to do that is to show an interest in their business and find out more about them. That's why we love Paul's product, and it's one of the things that I think is really easy for people to do today where they couldn't do it in the past, is to really narrow down that margin. And another thing to do is to have a couple of different lists. Have a list of people that are doing 0 to 10 deals, and then have a list of people that are doing 10 to 20, and then have 2 different kinds of scripts there. One might be about how to make more money. One might be about how to save your commissions or whatever, that type of thing, and have a different kind of strategy with both of them, so that you can then kind of A/B them and see which one is a better fit for your office over time anyways, right? Because if you want to find a sweet spot, a good pocket where you're going to, recruit 1 or 2 people a month, and not, people who recruit 10 or 50 or whatever, 20 people a month, like that's a different kind of system. That's where you're competing on fees, or you're just trying to like recruit people that are working at an Amazon fulfillment center all day and that type of thing, and not professional realtors.
All right. Christine has a follow-up question, but before I get on to that, did you have anything you wanted to add to that initial question, Virginia, about what agents you should?
So I agree with Rob. I think that whatever the team leader that's asking that question, she should pull her numbers on what her team does, what their average price point is, how many deals they do per year. Are they listing heavy or buyer heavy? And what are the tools that she offers? Ranking your prospects he's right. I have a coach for recruiting, and he told me that B's and C's are really good to prospect because there's room for growth. Your A's, which are your $20 million, right, solo flyers, not your big old teams that are doing incredible numbers right now. But if you're looking at your B's and C's, if you rank them by production, then you can see where your numbers are, that you have proven data of what you can accomplish with an agent through working with you, and then look at their data. And if there's a gap in there as far as units done, sides done, or their average sales price, then you know that you can tell them, we average this at sales price and you average this. So there is room for you to grow, and we can help you with that. So those finding out which category that is that you can help.
Okay, or other follow-up questions?
Exactly.
Let me see if I can combine it. So
Thank you.
do you personally call, or do you start off with, let's say, maybe a drip campaign, email campaign, and then follow it up with calls, if I got that correct, Christine? And along with that, do you have any scripts or campaigns that you find more successful than others? And
Is that
she's
from
in Illinois, by the way, not in Tampa, so.
Yeah, she's where?
She's up in Illinois, so
Oh.
she's not gonna be stealing your agents.
Oh, no. And by the way, I also don't believe in that, right? I believe everyone is where they're supposed to be. If she, let's say, I don't know what her name is, but if they were to go to her office, that was the right fit, right? I have complete faith that everyone is where they're supposed to be. You have your jumpers. I call them jumpers. Every year they've got a new brokerage, right? But if you have someone that really did their job and really researched you and you're the right fit, they'll stick with you. And if they leave, that they should have left. But anyhow, to answer her question, Rob makes the calls for me. I have attempted to call. We do have scripts, but so does Rob, in my opinion, because I'm a producer still. It's you have to, for me, I had to be realistic. Am I going to make all those calls? You should be time blocking time for that, right? I'm going to compliment Rob's efforts because I want to learn, but I have him in place to execute that pillar. When I talk to them, I do a Zoom because I feel like the essence of who I am and what we're about is easier to transmit if they can see my eyes. Like an attorney told me yesterday, the Constitution grants you the right to meet your accuser eye to eye, because there's something to be said about that. I thought that was brilliant. I said, well, I've always felt that even in business, the closer I can get to eyeball is best. And I find that I get a better response when I at least Zoom with them instead of a call on the initial, after Rob has booked them and they've expressed some interest. But we do have follow-up emails. We use Resora. I've used Constant Contacts for 10 years. I love them. It was very effective. One of the best effective tools I've used to farm my area. But we do email. We also do digital ads. And what we're using right now is coming from a collaborative approach. We are putting free information out there where we're talking to you about tools that we use, how we use them. It's just, we're coming from a place of giving. And we hope that that will draw that type of client back to us, because we want our agents to collaborate with each other and help each other out. So in their goals. So that's what.
And just to, yeah, I agree with everything you're saying there. And just to speak about that system that Christine was asking about, sending out emails is a great idea. Sending out like an email drip campaign once a week or every 2 weeks or however you want to factor it in, as long as the content is of value and isn't just about selling your office, is a great idea. With a video in there, which is why, Virginia's gotten into the videos. We do email marketing all the time for our company. We used to do it for our clients all the time as well. We don't do it anymore because all we do is the calls. But the thing is when we did email marketing, we would go in and we could have a look and see who clicked on what within that email. And like Virginia, that's why she loves Constant Contact and those other programs. Being able to see who's clicking on your stuff and looking at the analytics is old school marketing. But it works great for calling people as well, because you can see if someone opened your email 5 times and clicked and watched your video about whatever you're talking about 5 times, then that's someone you should call and say, hey, how are things going this year? Like, is there anything we can help you out with? I mean, how are things going over at your office over there? I saw the production's down, that type of thing. And come in with a call like that where you're fully prepared. You've looked at their production. You can see they're clicking all over your stuff. Drop in and make a friendly phone call, or have a service like us make a friendly phone call for you and set an appointment. Those are how you generate a funnel for yourself, and that's how you can continue to grow. But you have to push. You can't take time off from it. It's number one thing that people make a mistake of is taking December and January off, or taking the summer off from recruiting. It's one of those things where it's year round, just like sales, and you can keep pushing even in the slow times, because that's where you might catch people that don't have any listings. They were waiting to move when their listings expired, or when they were waiting for a deal to go through. That's sometimes where people get hung up, and the only way you're going to find that out is by continually sending things out and continually pushing.
Yeah.
Well, all good points. So we're pushing in the 30+ minutes here, which, Bob, I'm a stickler for keeping in the time schedule. So
it's a good Q&A.
Some closing comments here. So for Virginia, why don't you leave us with a few golden nuggets while we wrap this up?
So I think the most important thing is believing in what you have to offer, assessing what value you bring to someone else as an entrepreneur, as a business person. They're agents, but they really are business people, and believing in what you have to offer, knowing how to present that, knowing what your value proposition is, and how you can make a difference, knowing those numbers. If you come from that place, and when they leave you, even if they don't join you, they have something wonderful to say about you. I think that's the energy you want to put out when it comes to having a business, whether it's a team or a brokerage in any city. You're there to service that community. And that's, especially if you're recruiting, that includes real estate agents. So always leaving them with a positive image is what you want.
Well said.
Love it.
So I guess I'll leave with a pitch of, On Task, of course, provides you, the broker, with all of that information, brings in the agents from the MLS, gives you their production. We do have email tracking, so you can find out if your emails have been read. And of course, we integrate perfectly with Rob's service of calling at Pro Broker. So it is just a complete package of recruiting, which during this time of year, we all know this is a good time to recruit, especially with the market being somewhat tumultuous. People are reassessing their business plans for the coming year. And no better time than to put your value proposition in front of them. With that being said, happy Thanksgiving to everybody, including you up there in Canada, Rob. Happy Thanksgiving to you. And we will
Thank you.
let you know when the next podcast is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Paul. Bye, Rob.
All right. Thanks, Virginia. Have a great day.